Okay, so today we're really going to dig into Proxmox VE. You ever want to build like your own little server empire without needing, a server room the size of a small country?
Right.
This is where Proxmox VE comes in.
Yeah.
And to make sure, we're giving you the good stuff. We're going straight to the source, right, to the official Proxmox VE and Proxmox backup server documentation.
Yeah, there's a reason Proxmox VE is getting so much buzz these days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's open source, which is always a win.
Right.
But it's also incredibly powerful.
Okay.
Imagine having that, flexibility of Debian Linux. But then you combine that with the performance of KVM hypervisors. And it's all kind of wrapped up in this really sleek web interface that makes managing your virtual world, surprisingly easy.
Okay, so pause for a second.
Sure.
Hypervisors?
Yeah.
What are we talking about? For those of us who, don't speak fluent tech.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So a hypervisor think of it this way. It's basically the wizard behind the curtain of virtualization, right?
Oh, yeah?
It's a software layer that allows your physical server to run multiple virtual machines, each with their own operating system and resources, as if they were separate computers.
Okay.
And KVM, you know what we're talking about with KVM? KVM is known for its speed and stability, and that's because it's baked directly into the Linux kernel.
So it's like KVM is like directing traffic, right? It's making sure that each virtual machine gets its fair share of the server's resources without crashing the whole party.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And Proxmox VE actually takes it a step further with something called LXC containers. Okay.
So think of these as even lighter weight virtual machines.
Yeah.
And what's really neat about them is they share the host's operating system kernel, which makes them super efficient for running applications or microservices. So it's like choosing between, like a full-blown server and a really nimble cloud instance. But it's all within your own kind of Proxmox world.
So I can have my cake and eat it too.
Exactly.
I can have my efficient containers for some tasks, my robust virtual machines for other tasks, and I can manage it all from a single interface.
That's the idea.
This is sounding dangerously close to having my own private cloud in my basement.
It is. You're catching on.
Okay.
But this is where Proxmox VE gets really interesting.
Okay.
They have this really unique file system called PMXCS.
And I know that's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
But just, think about it as the brains behind your Proxmox setup.
Okay, virtual brains.
Yeah, virtual brains.
Okay.
So imagine this. You set up a Proxmox cluster, which is a fancy way of saying you're using multiple servers to kind of share that virtualization workload.
Okay.
PMXAS acts like a central database. It stores all your configurations for your virtual machines, your containers.
Okay.
And it replicates them across every single node in the cluster.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Is this what we mean? Is this what the tech people mean when they talk about high availability?
You got it.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
So let's say one of your servers decides to take an unplanned nap.
Happens all the time.
Right. It happens.
Yeah.
With PMXCF, the other nodes in the cluster, they instantly know everything about those virtual machines that were running on that, sleepy server. Oh. And they can pick up the slack without skipping a beat.
So there's no more single point of failure. Everything just keeps humming along.
That's the idea.
That's impressive. Okay.
Yeah, it's like having a team of synchronized swimmers, right?
Yeah. Okay.
If one takes a dive, the others are already there to kind of support the routine. You know what I mean?
Right.
Keep it going.
So speaking of keeping it going, how do we get this Proxmox party started?
Well, they've actually made the installation process pretty straightforward.
Okay.
You download what they call a hybrid ISO image, and think of it as a digital blueprint.
Okay.
And you can either pop that on a CD/DVD or even better, a USB drive.
Okay, so you can go old school or kind of new school.
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
But I will say this, there's a little insider tip from the Proxmox documentation.
Okay, give it to me.
Don't even try to use UNetbootin for the USB method.
Okay.
Apparently, they just don't get along.
All right, it's good to be warned.
It's good to be warned.
Yeah.
It's those little, quirks that make, reading their documentation almost fun.
Right, it's okay. Little personality.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got Proxmox installed. We've got our virtual machines or our containers ready to roll, but they need a way to talk to the outside world.
Of course, yeah.
That means networking.
Right.
This is where it gets a little
complicated.
complicated, yeah.
So Proxmox VE uses something called bridge networking. Now it's a little bit technical,
Okay.
but essentially what you're doing is you're creating this virtual switch on your Proxmox server,
Uh-huh.
and it's often labeled as like VMBRX. Think of this bridge as like a central hub
Okay.
that connects all of your virtual machines to your actual physical network, each with their own individual IP address,
Okay.
just like a regular old computer.
So they basically become full-fledged citizens on my network.
Exactly, yeah. They're not living in isolation anymore.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
part of the group.
Right. Right.
And here's a pro tip. If you really want to,
Okay.
geek out, you can even use Linux spawns to create network redundancy.
Okay. Now you're speaking my language.
Okay.
Linux spawns. Break it down for me.
Okay, so imagine you have two internet connections, right? With bonding, you can actually combine those two connections into a single, super reliable connection for your Proxmox server.
So if one connection goes down?
You've got an instant backup.
Okay.
Your virtual machines won't even notice a blip.
It's like having a backup internet connection that kicks in so fast it's practically psychic.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Okay.
You're going to have to teach me that one.
But let's say I want to take this to the next level, right?
Okay.
I'm picturing a fortress of servers,
Uh-huh.
all working together in perfect harmony.
Right.
We're talking about building a Proxmox cluster. Yeah.
Now, you're thinking big, all right?
All right.
And you know what? Creating a Proxmox cluster is actually surprisingly very straightforward.
Yeah.
And they have this really handy command line tool.
Okay.
It's called pves-e.
PVEC
I know, it sounds a little intimidating.
does sound a little intimidating.
But it's like the Swiss Army knife of Proxmox cluster management.
Okay.
It can do it all.
So you're saying it's actually user-friendly?
Surprisingly, yes.
Okay.
Adding nodes to your cluster can be as simple as pointing and clicking in the web interface.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, Proxmox VE really shines when it comes to like user experience and user friendliness.
Well, that's good news for anyone who's spent hours wrestling with, like, clunky server management interface.
Oh, tell me about it, yeah.
But speaking of cool features, I've got to ask you about live migration.
Okay.
This is like something out of Star Trek.
It is, yeah.
Running virtual machines between physical servers without any downtime.
It's like teleportation.
How is that even possible?
It is a bit like teleportation, right? You're basically transferring the entire running state of that virtual machine from one physical server to another without interrupting its operation.
So it's like swapping out the engine of a car while it's still driving down the road.
That's a great analogy. And just like you'd need, a pretty smooth road for that engine swap,
Right.
live migration really relies on something called shared storage.
Oh.
So both the source server, where the VM is currently running,
Right.
and the destination server, where we want it to go, they both need access to the same storage system.
Okay, so the files actually live in that shared storage.
Exactly.
Got it, okay.
And that ensures, like, a seamless transition
Okay.
without missing a beat, hopefully.
All right, shared storage. Got it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that caught my ear.
Okay.
Q device.
Ah, yes.
It sounds like some kind of gadget that James Bond would use.
I was going to say, it does sound very, like, cloak and dagger.
Right.
What is Q device?
What is this mysterious device?
So, not quite a gadget for espionage,
Okay.
but it plays a crucial role in Proxmox VE's high availability setup.
Okay.
So remember how we talked about the importance of shared storage?
Yes.
Q device acts as a dedicated watchdog for your shared storage, making sure it's always accessible to all the nodes in your cluster.
So it's like the security guard for our virtual bank vault.
I like it, yeah. Keeping those shared files safe and sound.
Right, okay.
Exactly. So in that, hopefully unlikely event that a node loses connection to that shared storage, Q device is going to step in. It's going to prevent any kind of data corruption.
Okay.
And it's going to allow the other nodes to continue accessing the storage without interruption.
Okay, so Q device is like the silent guardian, the watchful protector
I like it.
of our virtual realm.
That's a good one.
But let's talk about those situations where things go really wrong.
Okay, yeah.
Natural disasters, zombie apocalypses, you name it.
Big one.
That's where disaster recovery comes in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does Proxmox VE have our backs when things get really, truly epic?
It does. It absolutely does.
Okay.
So Proxmox VE has this feature called replication, and this is basically like creating a real-time backup of your virtual machines,
Okay.
but it's on a different server,
Okay.
potentially even in a different location.
So it's like having a secret escape route for your virtual machines, just in case the mothership goes down.
I like it. That's a good one.
All right, so tell me more about how this replication magic works.
Well, it's actually surprisingly straightforward.
Okay.
Proxmox VE lets you set up these things called replication jobs.
Okay.
And these jobs specify, like, which virtual machines you want to replicate, where you want to replicate them to,
Right.
and how often you want to do it. And you can get really granular with it.
Okay.
You can replicate the entire virtual machine, or you can choose to replicate just specific disks.
So whether it's like a minor hiccup or like a full-blown system meltdown, I can have a replica VM ready to go at a moment's notice.
That's the idea.
Okay.
And you actually have some options there, too. So you can have your replica VM running what we call like a standby mode.
Okay.
And this means it's like, warmed up, it's ready to take over. Immediately, if the primary one fails.
Got it.
Or you could be like, you know what, I need to conserve my resources a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to keep it in like a paused state.
Okay.
It conserves resources, but of course, it takes a little bit longer to kind of spin up if you need it.
It's like having a backup dancer.
Yes.
Ready to step in if the lead dancer twists an ankle.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so speaking of keeping things running smoothly.
Okay.
Networking.
Yeah, SDN.
SDN.
That's right.
It sounds futuristic, but how does it actually work with Proxmox VE?
Yeah, so SDN is all about, like, bringing the power of software to your network, right? So instead of relying on, like, physical switches and routers to kind of, like, direct traffic, you're using a software controller that can talk to all of your Proxmox VE servers and your virtual machines.
So I'm picturing like a virtual control panel with like, digital levers and dials.
Right, yeah.
To like, manage my entire network.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
So what can I actually DO with SDN?
So Proxmox VE, it integrates really seamlessly with these popular SDN controllers, like, for example, Open vSwitch. And the possibilities, honestly, they're kind of mind-blowing once you start getting into SDN.
Okay, like what?
So let's say you want to create like a completely separate virtual network for each department in your company.
Okay.
And each of these networks has its own security policies, maybe its own bandwidth limits. SDN makes this like surprisingly easy. Or let's say you need to, like, instantly reroute traffic if a physical server goes down. SDN can handle that automatically.
So it's like upgrading your network from like a one-lane dirt road to a multi-lane superhighway.
That's a great way to put it.
All right, now let's talk storage.
Okay.
We've touched on shared storage,
Yeah.
but I know Proxmox VE offers a ton of different options.
It does. Storage is like the foundation of your virtual empire.
So what are we working with here?
Well, Proxmox VE gives you, a really wide range of choices. You can go with something local, like, ZFS or LVM. Those are great for single server setups. But then you can get into, like, the network-based storage, like NFS, ISCSI, or even Ceph.
Okay, hold on. That's a lot of acronyms. You're throwing a lot of acronyms at me.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's a lot. I know.
So break down some of those options.
Okay, so ZFS.
Okay.
ZFS is like having like a self-healing hard drive.
Okay.
It can like catch errors before they become actual problems. And it even lets you take snapshots of your storage.
Okay.
Which are like instant backups.
Okay.
Now, LVM, on the other hand, LVM is super flexible.
Okay.
It lets you like combine multiple physical disks into a single like virtual disk pool.
So ZFS is like the meticulous organizer.
Yes.
And LVM is like, the master of flexibility.
There you go. Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Now, NFS and ISCSI, those are both ways that you can actually access storage over your network, which is super convenient, especially if you're dealing with clusters. And then there's Ceph.
Okay.
Which is like the ultimate storage superhero.
Okay, superhero. I need to hear more about this.
Yeah, so Ceph is what we call like a distributed storage system.
Okay.
Which basically means it spreads your data across multiple servers.
Okay.
And this gives you that incredible redundancy, right?
Right.
Because if one server goes down, you're not,
You're not dead in the water.
You're not sunk, right?
Right.
But it also gives you incredible performance because it's like, all of these servers working together in perfect harmony.
So it's like having a storage area network, but without the, the cost and the complexity.
Yeah, you got it. That's a great way to look at it.
And the best part is, Proxmox VE makes managing Ceph surprisingly easy. It does with their vSceph tool.
That's right. Yeah, it's actually really, really, for how complex Ceph can be, they've done a great job of simplifying it.
Powerful features without the headache.
Exactly.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Now, before we get too lost in the world of storage,
Right.
let's talk about another important aspect, and that is backup strategies.
Right.
We've got Proxmox Backup Server,
PDS.
or PBS.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
What makes that stand out from all the other backup solutions out there? Okay, so we've got our storage sorted.
Yeah.
But like any good digital architect, we need a solid backup plan.
Right. Right.
So tell me more about Proxmox Backup Server.
Okay.
What makes that the go-to choice for Proxmox VE users?
So PBS, it was really built from the ground up with Proxmox VE in mind. It's like having, a backup solution that speaks fluent Proxmox.
Right.
It integrates directly with that Proxmox VE web interface.
Mm-hmm.
So backups are super easy to schedule and manage.
Okay.
But it goes beyond just convenience, right?
Okay.
PBS uses what we call incremental backups,
Okay.
which means that it only backs up the changes that were made since the last backup.
So instead of backing up an entire virtual machine every single time,
Right.
even if only one tiny file was changed,
Exactly, yeah.
it just grabs the new stuff.
That's all it grabs, yeah.
That's incredible.
It saves you time, it saves you storage space, it saves you bandwidth.
That's a win-win-win.
It is win-win-win.
But backups are only useful if you can actually restore them.
That's true, yeah, that's the important part.
What happens when I need to recover a file? Or maybe even an entire virtual machine?
So PBS makes restoring data almost enjoyable.
Okay.
Okay, maybe not enjoyable,
Almost.
but definitely painless.
Okay.
You can browse through your backups,
Mm-hmm.
find the exact files or virtual machines that you need,
Okay.
and restore them with just a couple of clicks.
So it's like having a rewind button
It is, yeah.
for my entire virtual infrastructure.
That's a great way to put it.
That's what I like to hear, right?
Yeah,
Power and simplicity all rolled into one.
there you go.
Now, let's talk about another critical aspect of virtualization,
Okay.
and that is resource management.
All right, yeah, very important.
We don't want our virtual machines acting like resource hogs.
No, we don't.
So what can we do about that?
So Proxmox VE actually uses Linux groups.
Okay.
And SIG groups are kind of think of them like virtual resource meters
Okay.
for your virtual machines and your containers.
Okay, so I can set limits on how much CPU power,
You got it.
how much memory, even disk usage
Yep,
each virtual machine can use.
that's exactly it.
So no more noisy neighbor problem
Everyone stays in their lane.
in our virtual apartment complex,
Sure,
right?
like it.
But what if I want to get even more fine-grained control?
Okay, yeah, you can actually fine-tune things even further.
Okay.
Proxmox VE lets you set up what we call quality of service rules, or QoS rules.
Okay.
And this basically means that you can prioritize traffic for specific virtual machines
Okay.
or even specific applications.
Give me an example.
Yeah, so let's say, you've got a web server. You can give that web server,
VIP treatment.
VIP treatment, exactly.
Sure.
You make sure that, your website loads lightning fast.
Right.
Even if there are other things, kind of happening in the background.
So it's like having a virtual traffic light system,
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
keeping everything flowing smoothly.
Yeah, keeping those bits flowing.
Right, even during rush hour.
That's right.
So we're talking about keeping things running smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about security.
All right. Yeah, that's important.
Because at the end of the day, we are building a virtual fortress.
We are. Yeah. Security is paramount.
So what does Proxmox VE offer in terms of security features?
So Proxmox VE, they take security very seriously.
Okay.
For starters, you've got strong password policies.
Mm-hmm.
You've got two-factor authentication,
Right.
which adds that extra layer of protection to your user accounts.
Right. So even if somebody gets a hold of your password, they still can't get in
Exactly.
unless they have your phone or your.
Exactly. That second factor.
Right.
It's really, really important these days.
And of course, we can't forget the built-in firewall.
The firewall, yeah, it's your first line of defense.
So I can configure that to only allow very specific traffic to and from my virtual machines, right?
That's right. Yeah, you can really lock things down.
Like having a security checkpoint at the entrance to our virtual fortress.
I like it. That's a good analogy.
So we've got strong passwords,
Yeah.
a vigilant firewall.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
What else, right?
Okay.
Well, Proxmox VE also lets you configure what's called role-based access control, or RBAC for short. And this is really huge when you're dealing with teams
Okay.
because it allows you to give different users, different groups, very specific permissions
Yep.
within your Proxmox environment.
So it's like assigning different security clearances
That's a great way to put it.
to different members of our team.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. So, the interns might be able to, get into the break room.
Right.
But only the senior engineers are going to get the keys to the server room.
I like it. Okay.
So that granular control over permissions, that adds a significant layer of security. And it makes sure that everyone can only access what they need.
Right.
And nothing more.
Right. Speaking of access, I remember earlier we were talking about, how the Proxmox VE GUI is available in over 20 languages.
I know. Isn't that impressive?
That always impresses me because it just shows their commitment to, accessibility for everybody.
Yeah, it's a testament to the global Proxmox community.
Yeah.
And their dedication to just making virtualization accessible to everyone.
All right, so before we wrap up our Proxmox VE journey,
okay,
I have to ask, what's, one thing
yeah.
about this platform that really stands out for you?
For me, it's the combination of power and simplicity.
Oh.
Like Proxmox VE packs and all these enterprise-grade features, things that, honestly, you would normally only find in really expensive proprietary software.
Right.
But at the same time, it's so user-friendly.
Yeah.
Like, the web interface is intuitive, the documentation is excellent.
It's really good.
The community is incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
It's like they found this, perfect balance between power and just usability.
It's funny you say that because, that's something that impresses me too.
Yeah.
It's their commitment to open source.
Oh, absolutely.
This isn't just some, hobby project that somebody's coddled together in their basement.
Yeah.
This is robust platform. It has a dedicated team behind it.
Oh, yeah.
They're constantly innovating. They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
I agree.
With virtualization.
Yeah, and because it's open source, you have that freedom to customize it to your heart's content.
Right, you're not locked into some, proprietary vendor's ecosystem.
You're not beholden to anyone.
Right.
You can do whatever you want with it.
It's like having the keys to the virtualization kingdom.
That's a great way to put it. I like that.
You can explore its inner workings. You can tweak things to your liking.
Yeah.
You can even, if you're feeling really adventurous, contribute back to the community.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what makes Proxmox VE so exciting.
It is. It's such a cool platform.
It's a platform with endless possibilities, limited only by,
your imagination.
Your imagination, exactly.
Yeah.
So to our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to explore the world of Proxmox VE.
It's a fun world to explore.
You don't have to be a tech wizard
to
get started.
Nope.
The documentation is your friend.
It is. It's surprisingly good.
The community is incredibly supportive.
They are a helpful bunch.
And the possibilities
endless.
Limitless.
That's right.
Any final words for our listeners?
Yeah, as you embark on your Proxmox VE journey, remember to have fun.
Yeah.
Virtualization, it can be incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
It allows you to build and manage your own digital world.
It's true. It's very empowering.
It is empowering, yeah. So go forth, experiment, and, just discover the incredible power of Proxmox VE.
Well said. Well said. And until next time.
Happy virtualizing.
Happy virtualizing.